Welcome back. In this week's episode, we discuss the House Republican probe into the Biden family business dealings, Dr. Fauci's legacy of tyrannical incompetence, and China's lockdown protests. I'm Luke.
And I'm Rhodey.
And this is the Right Side of the Compass podcast. So, Rhodey, did you see who Trump had dinner with?
No, who?
So he had business. Well, I guess he did have business. He had dinner with Kanye West as well as a certain Nick Fuentes.
Who's Nick Fuentes?
So Nick Fuentes is this guy on the internet. He is he's a conservative commentator, quote unquote, and he's very. Let's just say he calls himself. He prides on not being a friend to the Jews.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, very interesting. Well, they had both of those guys over for dinner.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to me. I know a lot of people are interested in throwing Donald Trump under the bus for this. Under the bus, yes. And while I am inclined to be very wary of that, because on the one hand, I don't want to punch right when the enemy's in front of me. On the other hand, I don't want to forget my interests as a Jew. And I'm not going to pretend that all of a sudden bigotry is okay when it's on our side. But we have to keep these things in mind. And we also don't quite know what Trump was thinking during the meal. We also don't know what was going on. But we might even talk about it next week. But it's interesting to note that this happened. This was a very big event because after the kerfuffle that Kanye West caused, it's very interesting to see who he's now dealing with and who's still talking to him. So,
yeah.
All right, but regardless, we do need to get into the episode. But before we begin, I do want to say that if you enjoy our content, if you're enjoying what we're putting out here, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to hit the notification bell when you sign up so that you can be notified of all of our latest uploads. We are also on your favorite podcast sharing platforms such as Spotify, Apple, and Google. And we're also on Rumble, and you can comment on the video to reach out to us, or you can reach out to us on Instagram, or you can find us on Twitter. Anyways, so you can find us there as well. We put a lot of work into this episode, so we hope you enjoy the content. Anyways, let's get back to the show. Now, the first order of business today is we're going to be talking about what I think was one of the most important pieces of news that came out that very few people are talking about. The House Republicans are probing Joe Biden for his business dealings.
Isn't that good?
I mean, it depends on how you look at it, but I think it's interesting. We need to know. These were things that should have been asked during the presidential campaign, which is actually one of the reasons that I'm very anti-voting month, because in my opinion, you should have until election day, or the candidates should have until election day to tell you why you should vote for them and not for the other guy, right? Because if you have voting month, people who they make their decision, they're just going to vote early, but really the candidates have until election day to convince you to vote for them. And this is a thing that should have come out earlier. But in any case, now that the Republicans have control of the House, or at least they seem to have control of the House, there's a committee to talk about the Joe Biden's dealings in places like Ukraine and things like that. So let's talk about this, because this comes from the Committee on Oversight and Reform. So it's republicans-oversight.house.gov, right? This is the website. This is official government. Business, right? So this is what the report says. This was published on November 17th, 2022. This is the headline: Comer, Biden family's influence peddling threatens national security. Right? Did you watch the video of
yes, I did. It was pretty interesting. Some of the things that they said I found surprising.
Yeah, I was watching the video as well, and the thing that I guess, of course, I think everyone was talking about Ukraine because of, when Biden made those comments where he said, like, we got the son of a bitch fired or something to along those lines. Essentially, you know the story of Ukraine, right?
I mean, his son, you mean like with Hunter Biden?
Well, it was more like not with Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden sat on the board of Burisma, which was a Ukrainian gas company, and we all know
Yeah.
how Hunter Biden is so good at natural gas.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, unless you're talking about farting,
But the
I'm
fired thing
being
is something else?
yeah. The fired thing is something else because there was basically there was some. Oh, I mean, it was related to it, but basically what happened was is that the I think the attorney general in Ukraine was looking into corruption in Burisma, and Joe Biden, because he was Obama's point man on Ukraine, he essentially told the Ukrainian president or whatever to fire the attorney general or the guy investigating in the or the prosecutor or something along those lines, to fire the prosecutor, or they wouldn't get any more aid from the Americans, and so they fired the prosecutor. um I think his name was Poroshenko or Lukashenko or something along the lines of that. And he even bragged about how he used his pull. And we're talking, but that was, of course, something big that happened, and we need to talk about that, as that should have come up uh, in the campaign. But now we're talking about, first of all, Joe Biden using Air Force Two for personal business dealings, as well as even human trafficking.
Yeah, that one I was shocked by. I was like, what does that even mean?
We don't know what it means, but what it can mean is that it can mean a couple things. It can mean that Joe Biden was using the government agencies to help human traffickers in the United States move girls from South America to help them get lost in the United States. It could also be something along the lines of Hunter Biden, in Eastern Europe, getting girls, involved in the sex trade. But the important thing to note is that uh, if the president of the United States is involved in human trafficking, then we deserve to know that, right?
Yeah, kind of. I would think that's kind of important.
So, I mean, it's crazy because I don't think anything will come of this. That's the thing. Like, they could find Joe Biden being implicated in some really crazy things, but the Senate's not going to
Act on it.
convict. Yes, they're not. Like, even if the Republicans in the House impeach, there's nothing really that's going to happen from it. So I'm not
Also,
like,
these things take time also. Like it's been 2 years since the election and now they're coming out with this stuff. So things take time. And so by the time they can even do anything, his presidency's gonna be over, so it's not even gonna matter anymore.
but that's the thing. I don't. It doesn't have to do. If the Republicans had managed to hold the House and the Senate during the presidential election, I think that maybe we would have seen this stuff earlier. But the reality is that because the Democrats controlled the House, there was no interest in this, right? There was no interest in exploring this. Everyone kind of knew this stuff, but you know, when they impeached Richard Nixon, they found out that Richard Nixon and the Republicans did something so crazy, right? So like bugged a Democrat meeting. If I recall correctly, that's what Watergate was about.
Yeah.
So like yeah, that kind of happened, and it happened all of a sudden, and these were crimes that took potentially place over many years, and they're gonna have to sit there and pontificate, and but they have the evidence. So but I don't think anything will happen of it because we've become so partisan as a nation.
Yeah. Yeah. So
All right.
yeah, and I agree. It's I don't know, like I said, it's just these things take time and it's just like it kind of feels somewhat pointless at the same time.
Right. So on the one hand, I agree with you. It is kind of pointless. I don't think anything will come of it in terms of political advantage, because I think the type of people that wouldn't have voted for Joe Biden were the type of people that already knew about this. Like, it was kind of obvious to anyone with a functioning brain that Hunter Biden wasn't exactly the most kosher individual on the planet. Like, you look at the degenerate that, Hunter Biden was. He had so much, he had pictures of himself doing drugs on his laptop that he just left at the technician. Like, you would think
Yeah.
that this is a real degenerate individual. But you know, I don't like. It should have been obvious to anyone that this was what was going on, but we'll see. This to me is more about the justice. This to me is more about the justice, and I don't know. I do want to see it, but you're right in the sense that it's not going to go anywhere. So don't make it about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, I wish I had something more to say, but honestly, this is so depressing. The human trafficking, really, it's just like, oh my god, I can't
Wow.
believe the president of the United States was involved in human trafficking. Although, why can't I believe it? It's so not. It's so standard corruption at this point.
I mean,
Uh,
similar with I don't know, Clinton and was it Epstein?
yeah, but yeah, I guess it is, isn't it?
I don't know,
Um,
like in terms of, he had all these famous people and politicians and all that stuff.
yeah. By the way, this is your daily reminder that Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. So just
Yeah.
yeah, all everything that's happened over the past few years has been in order to distract everyone from the fact that Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. COVID and the election and everything, that's all designed to make people forget that Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yes. So anyways, so let's talk about the next topic, which is Dr. Fauci's legacy. His legacy of tyrannical incompetence. Right? So this is
It's
from
funny.
the
I
Wall
haven't
Street.
heard about him in a long time.
That's what I was
Like,
about to say. Can you? I remember how COVID was kind of over for a while, and then it came back a little bit, but then it kind of just stopped. And I think everyone's just done. It's been like 3 years now. I think no one wants to hear the word COVID anymore. There are a couple of morons in the school that still wear the masks, but at this point, they're just, I just laugh at them, which they deserve to be laughed at. That's honestly like anyone who still wears a mask deserves to be laughed at
I saw a really
publicly.
funny meme where they're like, "Oh, isn't it sad that it's gonna be in a month, 2023, and we're still recovering from COVID, which will now be almost 4 years ago."
No, isn't it 3 years ago? Because 2020 to 2021,
No,
2021 to
2019,
2022. No,
technically.
no, not really. Not really. It's still 3 years. Still 3 years. But
Okay,
I
fine.
mean, like, it's still unacceptable. Still unacceptable that we've essentially destroyed our future because of the cough. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Um, No, so you and I both know that Dr. Fauci stopped being a household name a while ago. No one was really wearing the masks. I think everyone stopped taking all the various vaccine boosters, right? Which they all work. They're all very, very useful because that's what YouTube wants me to say, right? So they're all very useful and you should all take your vaccines because that is what YouTube is telling me to tell you. Anyways, so but this is from the Wall Street Journal. This is the opinion section. The Wall Street Journal, as an opinion or as a newspaper, is fake news, but sometimes they run some good opinions. And this is from the opinion section, Life Science. Public distrust of health officials is Anthony Fauci's legacy. And so this was written by Alicia Finley. And this is a very, very short article, but, this is interesting. Anthony Fauci gave his final press conference last week as head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, a post he has held since 1984. That's crazy. Can you imagine 1984? Don't you think it's a bit on the nose, 1984? Bit on the nose, Dr. Fauci.
That's really funny.
It is, isn't it, right? It
Yeah.
is. And so this is what was. So, anyways, I
Coincidence
continue.
much?
It's definitely not a coincidence. sometimes life imitates art very nicely. Regrets about how he handled the COVID-19 pandemic? He had a few, but too few to mention. Asked how dubious public health advice from the Trump White House affected progress during the pandemic, Dr. Fauci boasted, well, you remember, well, let me do my Dr. Fauci voice. Well, you remember, if you were around, that at this podium I contradicted those, which set off a whole series of things in my life. He added, the people who have correct information, who take science seriously, who don't have strange, way out theories about things, but who base what they say on evidence and data need to speak up more. Because the other side that just keeps putting out misinformation and disinformation seems to be tireless in that effort. Strange way out theories? You can only guess whom he had in mind.
That's
Those who
that's
argue.
it's a very good impression, actually.
My Dr. Fauci impression is very good. You see, you dumb schmucks, you just need to put on the mask and take the vaccine. Take the Fauci ouchie. Because I am the science. And when I say science, I mean the real science, not the fake science of actually investigating hypotheses and coming up with conclusions based on data, but on the religious convictions that what I and the various government appointed priests of the science have to say. That's the real science. So you should listen to me, because I'm Dr. Fauci, and I wouldn't ever harm you. Anyways, so you can only guess whom he had in mind. Those who argued COVID likely leaked from a Chinese lab, opposed lockdowns in favor of focusing protection on the most vulnerable, questioned the science of mask mandates, and said schools should remain open since children were at low risk of illness. Dr. Fauci said he wants to be remembered for his work on infectious diseases such as HIV and Ebola prior to the pandemic. Oh, you know how like we still have HIV and AIDS?
Yeah.
So he wants to be remembered for curing HIV, even though he never did such a thing. Okay, we can remember him for that.
Mm.
I'm totally okay with remembering him that for that as well. Although COVID is really, really very important, it is a frag. Oh wait, no, I need to read this in my Fauci voice. Although COVID is really, really very important, it is a fragment of the total 40 years that I've been doing it. Alas, Dr. Fauci's legacy will be marred by his divisive and arrogant leadership on that really, really very important fragment. Starting with the dissembling on masks, when the virus began to spread in the US, he advised that there's no reason to be walking around with a mask. He later reversed himself and acknowledged his earlier guidance was based on worries that there wouldn't be enough masks for healthcare workers. In other words, he told an expedient lie. Yeah, he did. He did tell an
Hmm.
expedient lie. Right. And so it goes over more on how he contradicted himself and said things that um, were uh, were expedient to his political cause, which, then, right. So these are the last two paragraphs. Um, how dare anyone question Dr. Fauci's expertise and judgment? If you don't agree with him, you don't believe in science. It's easy to criticize, but they're really criticizing science because I represent science. That's dangerous, Dr. Fauci asserted last November. But open debate and inquiry is the essence of the scientific method. Like all of us, Dr. Fauci is a mere mortal who has character flaws, hubris most of all. He presented himself as infallible. Many liberals all but worshipped him. His high handedness and lack of candor with the public sowed distrust in health officials and vaccines. No matter how much he pleads to the contrary, that will be his legacy. I think she doesn't go far enough in this criticism of Dr. Fauci.
No.
No, because the thing is let's put it this way, right? I remember I was watching a video by this rabbi, and he said like essentially along the lines of, you know, everyone believes in someone, everyone has a god, right? Or like a god, and therefore everyone has a priesthood, right? So for example, you know, if your priesthood is the Catholic Church, then what the Catholic bishop says goes, right? But people will say, oh, the Catholic bishop is wrong, or the Catholic bishop has an agenda, or this or that. But those same people won't even question the New York Times. They won't question, Dr. Fauci. They won't question the government. They just assume that if the government says so, it must be true. And that there's no agenda beyond, saving your life or telling you the truth, right?
Hmm.
So that's kind of the thing. Like, she's ignoring the fact that he does represent the science. Just science to him means the unelected bureaucrats that are in charge of telling Americans what to think about food and disease and the climate and basically all the things. These are answers to questions that are very religious in nature, right? This is a religion to these people. So Dr. Fauci's legacy isn't going to be that a distrust of, of health officials. It's going to be his political and religious activism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying.
What do you think?
That he's trying very hard to everyone's trying to leave a legacy behind, and so he's trying to, through any means, trying to stay relevant.
Right. That's interesting that you say that he wants a legacy, because I think most men want a legacy. That's one of the reasons why men typically like it when their wife adopts their last name and their kids. Typically, like, they're part of, like, the man leads the household because he wants the legacy, right? And so, it's interesting Dr. Fauci wants this legacy because, I was remembering, I think it was who said this? Chuck Schumer the other day. He came out and said, "Oh yeah, we have this problem that we need people to come to the country to do work, so we're going to get all these illegal aliens." Right? But a lot of conservatives were saying, "Well, hold on a minute. I have a solution to the problem. Ban abortions and get people marrying again, and then you will have people multiplying and having kids, and you don't need to import people from the third world, right?"
Yeah.
So, so we see that when the elite want their legacy, they can try to have it. But if, let's say, some kid who knows he can't get laid because he just, because there's too many things going against him, and the women are becoming men, so he can't find a date because between feminism and transgenderism and all this, he can't find a date, right? That guy doesn't deserve a legacy, but Dr. Fauci deserves a legacy. And I agree, Dr. Fauci should have a legacy. I just want his legacy to be one of shame and dishonor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because in ancient Rome, they used to destroy. If, let's say, there was a bad emperor, he was a very bad emperor. So one of the things they would do is, after he would die, they would smash all of his idols, like all the statues of him.
Statues of him. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because that was kind of like the Roman way of saying, we don't like your legacy.
Yeah, and so like we'd rather forget.
Yeah, we'd rather forget your legacy. So, but I want everyone to remember Dr. Fauci as a tyrant. That's what I want everyone to remember Dr. Fauci as. So, I'm
Yeah.
going to be telling
Speaking of
my kid.
tyrants.
Yeah, speaking of tyrants, let's go to topic number 3. Rhodey, why don't you tell us a little bit more about topic number 3?
Yeah, so it's funny. It's actually a good transition because we're talking about COVID and, you know, and having power. So basically, there's been a lot of protesting in China recently over the COVID restrictions. So apparently, China passed a zero. They passed a zero COVID, tolerance policy, and essentially, so like, and what triggered basically this outrage. So what happened is that there was a deadly fire last Thursday in Urumqi. I can't read that, but and the capital of the far western region of Xinjiang. The blaze killed at least 10 people and injured 9 in an apartment building, leading to the public fury after videos of the incident appeared to show lockdown measures had delayed firefighters from reaching the victims. The city has been under lockdown for more than 100 days, with residents unable to leave the region and many forced to stay home. So basically, after this fire, a lot of people are just sick and tired of, I guess, these restrictions, and I guess with the power of the overbearing power of the government of the CCP, and so it seems so. You have all these different protests breaking out, some more peaceful than others, and the police is trying to like get rid of them. But like it seems like in China, COVID hasn't gone away,
Well,
and so
the
yeah.
government's correct though. The important thing is that the people don't die of COVID. It's okay to die in a burning building, but we can't have you dying of COVID. That would mess with the statistics. So I see where the government's coming from here.
Yeah, I mean, but like, you don't want to, I mean, these people's freedoms are, at stake. That's the issue.
But they never had freedom. The Chinese aren't a free people. They never were. That's not how the Chinese view the world, right? Like you go to China and you talk about individual liberties, they're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" It's like that's not a thing that registers. They rightly understand that society matters. Like here in the West, we have this opposite problem where we kind of don't see any value in society. We kind of think you could do whatever you want as long as you're not slapping someone over the head. You could do whatever you want. Consequences be damned. You don't owe anything to your parents. You don't owe anything to the future. If you want to cut your penis off and pretend you're a vagina, you want to pretend you're a woman, totally cool. You don't have any responsibility to the people around you to get married, to have kids, to be, chaste and to be moral and to not promote bad values. There's nothing in our society like the Chinese have the opposite problem where than our problem, which is they have almost no sense of self. Right? Think about how long you needed people to die in a burning building because of COVID for them to come out and say, you know what, maybe we should allow people to leave their houses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
mean, yeah.
no, you were saying I didn't continue.
No, I was just saying that, like, I don't know, it's been a while, since COVID, so like, I don't know, you would think like, oh, it would have gone away, so like, why are they still so strict about it?
Be That's an excellent question because I don't know why they're because in the United States I understand why they're trying to do it because they're trying to beat their population into submission, right? But the Chinese, if you would just leave them alone, they don't have a problem with the Chinese Communist Party. That's what I'm trying to understand. Like, what's the deal? Like, this is only going to enrage people. Like that's the thing. The Chinese used to be much smarter at this authoritarianism than the Russians were, for example. The Russians were very bad at it. Within a
And
generation, their whole system collapsed, right? But the Chinese were smart. They knew to let up on the brakes a bit just long enough for, their society to work, right?
yeah. Well, also, it's not fully communist. It's a mixed socialist economy. It's a
I
little
think
bit
it's
different.
right, but they did it for pragmatic reasons. They did it in a very pragmatic way. Like they're still communist in the way that matters, which is that the state has its hand in
Controls.
all the
Yeah,
state has its hand in all like monetary economic decisions, but they allow, smart people to, kind of flex their, they allow smart people to become rich through flexing their economic brains and allowing them to manage things. Whereas the Soviet
exactly.
Union appointed, they were much more direct in their political appointments, whereas the Chinese at least allow a kind of pretense of capitalism on some level.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, but I don't know. Do you think this is going to bring about some change, or do you think that it doesn't
No,
matter?
I don't think anything's gonna happen. I think it's just the news talking about it and criticizing China, but like when has criticism over China ever stopped them? So like they've been protesting unless like all 1.4 billion people protest, it's not gonna make a difference. It's like hundreds of people and they're all in different places, and then the police is disbanding them and arresting them, so it's not or or some of them are more peaceful than others. So it's not. I really don't think it's going to make any sort of difference. I think it's kind of just people bringing
Well,
it to our attention.
well, that's the thing, right? You remember in one of the things that makes the bar so interesting as a like when you can leave your house and you go to the bar, right? You could talk with your friends about things, right? Now you can't do that. Now all your communication is done online. So the Chinese government is able to monitor effectively what everyone's saying. They either say it on the internet or they shut the F up.
Yeah, I mean, but they're saying it on the streets now. It's not on the internet.
Yeah, but there are but think about what it took for hundreds of people to gather in China
Yeah,
by word of
probably. Yeah,
mouth.
you're right.
Whereas if they could gather at the bars and plan more effectively, you know, think about it.
Yeah, no, you're right. So,
Why do you think the it's so crazy though that the news is reporting on this though, you would think.
well, I'm on CNN now, so I know, right? But like, I was interested to see
But
what CNN has to say about it. But like, it seems like they're not taking the side of China from what I'm reading.
no,
I
they
think.
can't do it. They can't do it obviously. What's CNN's motto? Like the most trusted name in news?
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, no. That's
Here it says by Sunday evening, mass demonstration has spread to Beijing, Chengdu, Guangzhou, and Wuhan, where thousands of residents called for not only to end to COVID restrictions, but more remarkably, political freedoms. Residents in some lockdown neighborhoods tore down barriers and took to the streets. Um, Protests also took place on campuses, including the prestigious institutions of Peking University and Tsinghua University. I'm butchering all these names, so please forgive me. Um, and
It's
Beijing,
Peking University, like Peking duck.
yeah, and Communication University of China, Nanjing. Um, yeah, so well, it just seems like in Hong. Yeah, so basically that's basically what's happening. Is all that.
I wonder if the students are because it's interesting because actually the Chinese actually what they do is they send communist students abroad to be like CCP moles in American universities. So I wonder if these students are actually pro freedom or they're just anti the lockdowns and they think they
Probably
can
because
do a better job of communism.
a lot of times they'll go to other countries and then see how they work, and then sometimes it might influence them the opposite way.
Maybe, we don't know. But yeah, we like it's I don't have an opinion honestly because China's kind of screwing everything up. So if they collapse, I'm very happy, and the Chinese people should kind of do something about it. But whatever, we'll see. I don't know how compatible the Western notions of freedom are with like these East Asian countries that are very Confucian in outlook and have been for many years.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't expect this to turn into a Western style democracy if that's what you're wondering.
No, no, I'm not expecting that at all.
Yeah, I would literally I would eat my shorts.
That were probably made in China.
Most definitely made in China.
All right.
Anyways, but yeah, so I think that's it for today. Yeah, so thank you for joining us for this episode of Right Side of the Compass podcast. Remember to like the video, share it with all your friends, and subscribe to the channel. In addition, hit the notification bell to be notified of all of our latest uploads. You can reach out to us or on the video, or you can reach out to us on the social network of your choice. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, so please reach out to us there. We put a lot of work into this episode, so we thank you for joining us this week, and we look forward to seeing you next time.